Susan Skipp, and my children and I have been victimized by the court system since August of 2010.
Ms. Skipp, I don't think your microphone is on. Yeah, I think you have to push the button, a little button.
Oh, thank you. My children and I have been victimized by the court system since August of 2010. I've not hugged my children or kissed them or spoken to them in 16 months. I've never been declared unfit, nor has any accusation been made of it except by my ex-husband and his attorney and his GAL. Quite to the contrary, many wrote letters and testified for the abuse my children suffered, including my first husband coming up. We lived in 2 separate states, and I raised the children here in Connecticut. 2 amazing daughters, one who's graduating from Fordham in May with a master's in social work, and another who's graduated with her master's from the University of London. She speaks English, French, Spanish, Turkish, and Arabic, and works in a think tank. My 13-year-old, whom I've not seen in 16 months, got a draft resolution adopted on indigenous land rights by 38 countries at the UN when she was 11. She also tabled a discussion where 400 people were there to ask questions. When my children were primarily with me, my daughter was in a pre-professional certificate ballet program, dancing since she was 4. Both of my younger children took mixed martial arts. My daughter Anderson played classical guitar, and my son Wyatt, after a brief stint of tap, combining his 2 favorite things, dancing and drums, settled on the drums. Neither does these things anymore. Aside from the screaming explanation from Dr. Miller, which mirrors my case, this entire system lacks an evidence-based practice in family court. The need for state to collect data so trends can be looked at in respect to decision-making and operations of GALs can be identified. As a teacher, I'm sitting here all day for, I don't know, as long as you have. I have questions, and I'm sorry, I hope I get to what I needed to say before I ask my questions. How can the Office of a Public Defender, GAL, not live on $50 an hour? That's $112,000 a year. Equal protection. You have all of these people that have come in here and explained how they've been bankrupted, but only indigent people have services by the Office of the Public Defender, GALs. The current model makes people indigent. Where is equal protection? We cannot collect data because there is no statistician in the judiciary system. The grievance panel has no investigators to investigate the unscrupulous GALs and attorneys, though they're budgeted for 2. My GAL, during the time she was both appointed and unappointed, and never a GAL on any list that you have, filed over 30 motions of contempt against me. She served as a necessary witness for my husband twice. The AFCC franchises the court, the judicial branch. Family relations is AFCC. GAL training is AFCC. Most of the panel on this task force are AFCC. AFCC vendors, the really horrible cases that have spoken about today have involved Linda Smith, Sidney Horowitz, Hebelo, Black, and Robeson. AFC members on this task force: Elizabeth Thayer, Joe DeTuno, Sue Cousineau, Sharon Dornfeld, Robert Horowitz. Aside from the numerous mental health workers that are AFCC members, I would like to point out high-ranking members that are decision makers in the judicial system that are AFCC members: Shelley Bachman, Faith Arkin, Stephen Franzini, Mary Lou Giovanni, she's in court operations, and CSSD, which is family relations, Joe DeTuno, Bill Carbone, who runs CSSD, Kathy Cerruti, Deb Kulak, Andrew Spurries, Rhonda Lucentius, and the Children's Law Center is AFCC. A huge number of judges and mental health workers are AFCC too. AFCC chooses its own programming and has a profit-sharing venture among vendors. Judges do not follow due process. A GAL filing 30-plus motions is not due process. Sorry, not going to get to bite.
Ms. Skipp,
Yes.
we'd ask you to summarize, please.
Okay. Well, Judge Monroe diagnosed me with an undiagnosed mental health disorder and took away my children and ordered me to go to another AFCC therapist called Harry Edemakis for $175 a week. I was able to purchase 3 hours a month to see my children. Again, never declared unfit. I had a psychiatrist testify that I have PTSD brought on by the court abuse that I've endured since 2010. The visitation was $180 an hour. It plus an hour to the drive there and the hour drive back. So my total monthly cost to see my children would be $2,350, which was way more than two-thirds of what I was earning. Aside from that, my former husband probably paid about $400,000 in legal fees. Well, $200, he still owes $183. The GAL, who was not appointed post-judgment, because a GAL by definition is a person appointed to a legal proceeding. The proceeding started with a dissolution. It ended with a dissolution by agreement. There was no stipulation made to keep a GAL. But 5 months later, one showed back up to make my children's lives and my life hell, destabilizing us emotionally, destabilizing me financially. In 2010, I was on the cover of the CCSD newsletter with accolades for the work I do. Family Relations is CCSD. I've been a teacher with at-risk youth for 18 years until court abuse. After taking my children, my identity, every asset, finally took my job. It's difficult holding a job while taking 60 days off.
Okay. And again, if you could please bring it to a close.
Okay. Lots of crooked judges, overbilling GALs, who aren't even GALs, profit-sharing vendors with no contracts with the state, which leaves litigants not protected by standard federal protections such as standard anti-discriminatory language. Sidney Horowitz has an open investigation in my case. He also does not have a contract with the state, bypassing the state vendor process. Howard Krieger also has a open investigation in my case, and he has a contract with the state but did not sign the part for the anti-discriminatory language. Linda Smith, somebody was talking about her before, who says that children need access to their parents. My kids see Linda Smith. I haven't seen my children. My ex-husband does not let them call me. They're not allowed to talk to their siblings, their two older siblings, and another sibling that is his daughter. Judges let it's the Wild West in the court.
Ms. Skipp, really, it's time to wrap it up, please.
Okay, well, really, this court system is the Wild West. There are no laws followed. Nobody knows laws in the courthouse. You get any pro se parent in here that's been doing this 3 years, I'm going to bet you they can outlaw any lawyer in here that's practicing family law or a judge because of the abuse that they had to suffer and forced financially to have to learn it on their own.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions? Jennifer?
I have a question. It seems like you were doing pretty well prior to all of this. Was it 2010 when the divorce proceedings? I mean, you've been able to raise two pretty healthy children, now adults. Went through an okay divorce with that particular husband. So how is it now that you're like in this big mess? Are you attributing it all to the court system?
Yeah, well, I think that there's a problem in the mechanism, and I don't notice if when this woman before Cheryl was giving testimony that all of the women were crying, and I think it's because there's a segment of the population, women that are in abusive relationships are missed, and the AFCC training doesn't account for those kind of situations, and instead they look for those behaviors and they call them alienating or histrionic or vigilant or belligerent. Instead of belligerent, my kids were taken away. I did nothing wrong. Why wouldn't I be upset or try to fight for them? I filed 400 motions. I've only been heard on 2. And any other time I've been to court, it was on my ex-husband's motions. I had a judge diagnose me.
Have you attended any of these AFCC meetings? So, I mean, I read on them. I read a lot on them, and I think that they offer a lot of good things. I looked at them. It was helpful for me on a lot of things. So I don't want to judge and say that they're all bad, because there's a lot of good people on that, and they're trying to learn to help the system. So I think there's a element of good there, and so I don't want to generalize. I don't think it's fair to generalize that all of them.
I don't want to generalize the whole AFCC, but I think there's a small pool of people that have a referral base back and forth that is very detrimental to litigants and especially children who are totally lost and forgotten in this mess.
And it was $2,300 a month for you to have supervised visitation with therapy and all that? Okay. That's a lot of money.
And the GAL, $130,000.
Can you break down that $2,300 a month? I'm sorry, Tom, I think I jumped in on you.
What?
All right.
$175 a week to see Dr. Harry Adamakis. $180 each hour. It would take 3 hours for 3 Sundays. I did 3 hours on a Sunday because it was an hour drive time.
So it's 100, well, I'm trying to get up to the 170. It's 175 each
A
week?
week. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's times 4?
Yes.
All right.
Then the Visitation Center was $180 an hour plus driving time, which was 2 hours.
So how many hours per week was that? So that's at the Visitation Center?
3 hours, but only seeing my children one.
And you had to pay for the driving time?
Yes. $23.50 a month. The court is not supposed to, give out a visitation center. The court, there's no statutory basis for a judge to order any post-judgment therapy to any parent. There's no statutory provision for that. So I don't know how that happens to everybody.
Which Visitation Center was that?
Visitation Solutions is also affiliated with Sidney Horowitz. And Howard Krieger.
$180 an hour?
Mm-hmm. I can print up the contract for you right on my email.
Okay, thank you.
Are you going to go?
Ms. Skipp, thanks for testifying today. I've ordered a lot of supervised visitation in cases that involve violence, extreme neglect, things of that nature. Were you given an indication as to why it is that you have only supervised visitation in the opinion of the judge?
The only thing that was said was that I caused the children harm. However, my former husband was ordered to have 10 weapons, 6 of them handguns, registered and legal, and the serial numbers given to the GAL. 6 months later, he tried to hit me with a car. He had a restraining order. It got transferred right back before Judge Risha, the same judge who ordered it. No weapon surrender. His attorney knew. The GAL, who was a necessary witness at that hearing, knew. The judge knew that there were 10 weapons, no weapon surrender, and nobody said a word about it. So the judges are just as bad as the GALs.
Aren't we able to carry arms? I mean, I don't know why. Was there a reason why he had to relinquish or give up his arms?
When you have a restraining order, it's an automatic order to you surrender weapons. 2 of the weapons were illegal, and one of them was untraceable. One of them was a semi-automatic. They were pointed at me. My children had access to these guns. They had access to ammunition. This was a big deal in my divorce. So that was a huge deal to me. And the only judge that made any fair decision ever was Judge Sheedy. After my ex-husband had a DUI, shortly after our divorce, I went for ex parte because of all the weapons were still not accounted for. This is 4 months later. He had a DUI. He had substance abuse issues. She did not grant the ex parte orders, but she said he had to stop visitation. I think that was the only fair judge, and I really think that was a fair decision to make at the time. I don't think we really need shared parenting. In my case, we have a joint custody state. Our statute 46B-53 provides that both parents are supposed to be involved in the children's lives. So I don't, if we follow the laws, that's the problem. We need to follow the laws, not make new ones. We need to follow laws.
What are some of the things that you believe would help in reforming the system?
I think that the GAL situation, I think, the judges are really out of hand. And somebody mentioned earlier that the judges would, kind of combine their court thing to keep, it's like RFTD keeps their dirty family secrets over in one place. If all the courts were combined so that it wasn't just a club of these family lawyers, family judges, and bouncing off to these other appointed vendors that are the same ones over and over, because it's the same judges that have the complaints, it's the same vendors that have the complaints. Edelman, Horowitz, Whetstone, Pincus, those are the standard judges. Kasumkas and Risha were mine. Howard Krieger, Robeson, those are the same names that come up all the time. So I have a GL not even on the list who has taken me to, I was ordered to either with a marshal with shackles to sign over my state of Connecticut teacher's retirement or go to jail. Right there, shackles, marshal, had my kids that weekend. And so the state is forcing litigants into contracts. I never signed a contract with this GAL. A GAL is a discretionary tool to make a finding for a judge. I don't think a parent should be responsible for a tool that a judge needs to use to make a finding. I think that the GALs should be equal protection. I can't believe anybody that says $50 an hour is not a lot of money. $112,000 a year is a lot of money. I'm sorry if your standards are higher than that. $50 an hour, sign me up.
Well,
One more question, just so I understand, because I've heard a lot today, we've all heard a lot today about this idea that you owe someone a debt, but you're being told you have to pay that debt now or go to jail. Mm-hmm. That's what you were told, you had to pay
Many times. Every time I go to court, this Mary Brigham has violated a federal order 9 times. The grievance committee just brushes it under the rug. It's both a criminal and civil violation of a stay. She has lied, perjured herself. Could somebody please tell me where I go for perjury? Does anybody know? I want to know who prosecutes perjury. What is the threat? And Mary Brigham, but she's not even there. Brigham. I just want to know where we go for perjury. Can anybody tell me that? Because so people recklessly lie. Like my cardiothoracic ex-husband makes $500 a week. That's a $8,500 cut from when we were married. So it's just, it needs accountability. The judges are just as bad. The judges are as bad as the GALs and the lawyers trying to make money. I don't know.
other questions? Thank you for hanging in with us, Ms. Skipp.
Thank you.